So I'm not a keyboard enthusiast by any degree. In my entire life, I've owned maybe 4 keyboards. A shitty rubber dome one, a Magic Keyboard from Apple when I was a Mac user, a ridiculously expensive one from Corsair that I thought would make me better at games, spoiler, it didn't, and now we're at the BlackWidow Lite. And I can happily say that I think I found my dream keyboard, at least for a little while, and today I'm going to explain to you why it may or may not work for you as well. Let's take a look. Welcome to Top Spec, your one-stop shop for tech content. As I suggested in the intro, today we're going to be doing a review of the Razer BlackWidow Lite. Before we start though, I do have a couple forewarnings. I did buy the keyboard when it was on a pretty substantial sale, and you've probably noticed by now that I replaced all of the keys except for the spacebar with PBT keycaps from Mac's keyboard. More on that later. So without further ado, let's break this video down into 4 sections. Specifications, build quality, the switches themselves, and my opinions. The BlackWidow Lite is a 10 keyless, fully mechanical keyboard that features Razer's orange switches as well as individually backlit keys. Despite being composed of plastic, it still weighs approximately 2 pounds, or more specifically 721 grams. It also comes with a high quality detachable braided micro USB cable, which is about 3 meters long, and that should be enough for most people. The cable connects to a single micro USB port, which is positioned on the top right of the keyboard, which I'd say is an optimal position for most people. Another great feature is that the bottom of the keyboard features these really nice, thick, premium rubber pads which completely stop the keyboard from moving around, and I'd really like to highlight that these are amazing. It really does not move around at all on a flat level surface unless you're really trying to push it. And the great thing is, even if you choose to extend the flaps on the back, they also have a little bit of rubber on the bottom, which still prevents it from moving around. Great job, Razer. Another point I'd like to draw attention to is that this is not a standard 10 keyless layout, even if Razer chooses to advertise it as one. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, so if you insist on skipping, go to this time, but I promise that this has a purpose. The upper 5 rows of the keyboard are completely standard, but the bottom row is where things get a little bit weird. It's what's called a 6.0x spacebar layout, and as far as I'm aware, it's a layout that Razer themselves has made. Essentially, the only thing that's different from a standard layout is that they've chose to shorten the spacebar by 1/4 of a key length. Yes, a key length is a unit in the mechanical keyboard world. Anyways, to compensate for that, they've kind of just cherry-picked random keys to make larger and smaller, and it just seems weird. This initially met me with mixed feelings because there's nothing on the Amazon page that even hints that this is not a standard 10 keyless layout, but I could have done more research, but I really shouldn't have had to. However, it appears to me now that this is just proprietary bullshit. This keyboard drove me insane. So let me explain. I had planned to pick up a set of PBT keycaps, which are a nicer alternative to the glossy plastic ones that Razer includes in the box. Now this shouldn't normally be an issue. I should just be able to look up 10 keyless PBT keycaps and be met with a large array of choices. But this f***ing spacebar layout was nowhere to be found other than from Razer themselves. Razer sells their own proprietary keycaps that fit their weird layout perfectly and come in 4 disgusting colors. I also had my eye on getting some blank keycaps because I like the aesthetic of them, and that was not a choice from Razer. I was also not keen on supporting Razer after I kind of realized what they were doing here, but thankfully after a couple hours of research, yes, hours, I found a set from Mac's keyboard that works perfectly and fits all of the criteria I was looking for. So anyways, the reason I've spent so much time talking about this is that you must know that you are heavily limiting yourself with the amount of customizability that you have if you choose to purchase the Razer BlackWidow Lite. Though I happened to find a keycap set from a company other than Razer that works with their stupid layout, it wasn't without hours of research, and the spacebar didn't even end up working because the stabilizers were too tall. Anyways, that about does it for the technical specifications. Let's move on to build quality. So I've already hinted at this, but this keyboard is built damn well for being under $100. The body is made out of a matte plastic, but if I hadn't taken a second look, I could have mistaken it for a nice brushed metal. Razer really took extra steps that they didn't need to for this price point, such as making the cable both braided and removable, as well as making those rubber pads on the bottom so darn thick. The point is, the last criticism I'd give this keyboard is that it feels cheap, because it doesn't. However, it is a mechanical keyboard like any other, so it does require a little bit of maintenance, just a little bit of compressed air every now and then, and it'll stay clean and looking new. Anyways, that's really everything I have to say about the keyboard from a build quality standpoint. Onto the switches. As I suggested earlier, the BlackWidow Lite features Razer's orange switches, which essentially are their version of Cherry MX browns. On paper, they have all the feeling of brown switches, but not so much of the quietness, even though Razer advertises them as being silent. I will admit that this could be inflated because I'm using PBT keycaps, but this issue was still prevalent before I started using them. So in order to test this, I did a very unscientific test. All I did was I recorded myself typing using a decibel meter app on my phone, and it seemed to range between 60 and 70 decibels, which is not quiet at all. I will say I've heard people type on Cherry MX Blues, which are some of the loudest switches available. These are not quite on that caliber, but they're too close for being considered silent. It also appears that in a lot of these keyboard reviews I've seen on YouTube, that people will type on the keyboard to show how loud it is and how it sounds, so I'll do that really quickly. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Anyways, the claims that the switches are highly tactile and have an actuation point at around 2mm seems to be right, and despite my criticisms, I actually love the way that these switches sound and feel, even though I didn't know that they were going to be quite this loud. I also felt that I was able to type faster on Razer's orange switches than the Cherry MX switches that I've tried out, so I actually did another really unscientific test where I played Nitro Type on both the BlackWidow and my Strafe RGB to just get a gauge on if it's really faster. And I think the results speak for themselves. While the typing accuracy was within the margin of error for both keyboards, the words per minute is a pretty distinct difference. It's worth noting that there wasn't a single trial where the Strafe RGB beat out the BlackWidow Lite. Also, the average was 15 words per minute more on the BlackWidow Lite. I'd likely contribute this to the fact that these switches are tactile instead of linear, and I think that tactile switches are much better suited to typing heavy tasks. However, that's just me. You're likely a completely different person than I am, so the only thing I'd take away from this is that you should test out all the switch options that you can. The best thing is to just go to a Best Buy and try out all the different keyboards they have there, but I understand that's not really an option because of COVID-19 right now. But if you are so inclined, the second best choice is to pick up a Cherry MX switch tester. I've left a link to one in the description. It's about 10 bucks. Anyways, that's really all I have to say about the switches. They're super tactile, they feel great, and other than them not being super quiet, they're pretty great all around. You can really use these for gaming or for essays or for whatever you want to do. Anyways, let's finally move on to my opinions. The Razer BlackWidow Lite is a nice little brother to the fully spec'd out Razer BlackWidow. It lacks some of the bells and whistles that its older brother has, such as USB pass-through and full RGB, but it does not compromise on quality at all. It does highly restrict customizability in favor of proprietary products, but there still are products out there, especially at maxkeyboard.com. We're not sponsored, but hit us up. Anyways, I would just be sure to do the research beforehand to make sure that there's enough options out there to fully customize the keyboard to your full desire. That being said, this keyboard sticker price is $90, and in my opinion that's a little bit too much. I was able to get it for $65, and there's still keyboards up right now that are for sale. At the time of recording, there's one for $75 in a different colorway, so if there's any time to buy these, it's right now. However, even if you're watching this video months in the future, it appears that they do pretty regular sales with this keyboard, so I'd keep your eye open on the Amazon page. That's pretty much it though. A link to the product is down in the description below. Once again, I am not a keyboard enthusiast by any definition of the word, but I do enjoy a good keyboard. That being said, I'm open to any and all criticisms down below, but I did try to give you all the information that I'd want to get out of a keyboard review, so hopefully I did a decent job. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. We have some really exciting stuff coming to this channel, including a $900 Ryzen PC build next week. So if that sounds interesting to you or you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell as well. Thank you so much for making it all the way through this video. I'm Aaron, and we'll see you next week.